Let's have a shot at the 12-mark question. And the first thing I see is the golden words and exactly what you want to see. I want you, in your exam, if you see this, just at least smile, just be happy. Use a cost and revenue diagram. So using a cost and revenue diagram. Now, if your 12-mark question, you can go back and watch the video I have on 12-mark questions, going in depth on it. I go a bit more in depth than this, but a TLDR, if you get a 12-mark question which it explicitly states it uses this wording, using a cost and revenue diagram, this means you can pick up all 8 marks, so all 8 of your KA marks, by just drawing the cost and revenue diagram. As long as your diagram is accurate, you've shifted whatever they need you to shift, you've got a decent chain of analysis, it's the fastest and the easiest 8 marks you'll pretty much get for any 12-mark question. So using a cost and revenue diagram, discuss the likely impact of rising costs for coffee shops on their profitability. And now, since it's talking about rising cost and revenue diagram, the one rule you need to remember is when there's an increase in variable cost, both increase. So both your MC and your AC will increase. Whereas if there's an increase in fixed cost, only your AC will increase and your MC stays the same. That's just a rule you can need to remember. It is on the flashcards on the You Do Econ website. But yeah, let's have a look at which one is specifically telling us is increasing and is referring to extract A, line 2. So let's have a look at that. So line 2 would obviously be here. So line 2 is here apparently, so my bad. So they've experienced rising costs, but basically we're trying to find why there are rising costs, and the next paragraph does actually tell us that. So rising wages, that's one of the reasons for the rising costs. So minimum wage increasing and rising rent. And to class these in fixed versus variable, of course, wages would be a variable cost, rising rents would be a fixed cost. So that basically means I'm just going to shift them both up since the question, I think they will let you in this question, since they've mentioned both, they will let you shift just AC up. So if you're talking about fixed costs, but they won't mind if you shift them both up since they have mentioned variable cost. So it doesn't matter which one you do, just make sure you shift either one of them up. So yeah, let's draw this out. Okay, of course, just like before, cost, revenue, quantity. I always, with my cost revenue diagrams, I always did it in the same order, just so it just meant consistency for me. So D equals AR, MR, AC would always be my third curve, and then MC would always be my fourth and last curve. So if I was literally doing the exact same thing every single time, so it meant that I would basically never make a mistake, and I never did. So now, of course, we said there's an increase in variable costs, so we're just going to shift the AC up like that. For the sake of the video, I know you can't do this in the exam, I'm going to use red just to make it a bit more clear. So AC moves up there, and then MC, again, what is the rule with MC? MC has to intersect AC at its lowest point, and remember, you do need to follow that. I probably should have annotated the first one before I did this, but let's quickly just label up the profit maximization points. So MC equals MR there, then we go up to our AR curve, so let's just get the box super normal profit, or super normal profit. I'm going to label this number 1. So that is our box of super normal profit before. But let's make sure this fully labelled so we do not drop any marks. That would of course be P marks, and this I'm going to label this Q marks. Now let's find the next box of supernormal profit. Just works the same way, and I actually need to label these correctly. So MC1, AC1. So now where does firm's profit maximize? Where MC equals MR, which would of course be at this point here now. So yeah. So you need to make sure, do not slip up on these small things. MC1 is here, but MR is still here, so still would be at this point. So now let's go up to our AR curve, which of course is here, and then go left. So this is now our price. So I'm going to label this PMAX1, and then what do we do? So let's label this QMAX1. How do you find our profits or maybe our losses in this scenario? We go up from QMAX1 until we hit our AC curve, and in this scenario we are still making a, of course, relatively much smaller box of supernormal profit, but we are still making a box of supernormal profit, and that's exactly what they want you to comment on in the chain of analysis. So whether in your diagram, whether you're making a loss with maybe if your AC was somewhere up here, you would be making a loss. But whether you're making a loss or the box, and of course the box of supernormal profit will be smaller, whatever you do, because you have shifted the AC up. That's exactly what they want you to comment on. Quote these points, say prices have changed, and the main thing is that the box of supernormal profit has shrunk. Why? Because costs have increased, and of course, how do we make? What is the formula for profits? Profits are revenue takeaway costs. Therefore, since our cost has increased, it means that the overall profit has decreased. And of course, include your application why. So we said that variable costs have increased, and here it actually mentioned what's happened with variable costs. So talk about the 6.2% increase in national minimum wage has caused this effect on cost, and that's why you should hope for a question like this. That is all 8 marks boxed off, as long as you just write a small bit, include a pivot application, then like I said, talk about the increase in the variable cost and what it causes, just compare the relative boxes of supernova profit, and that is all you need for your eight KAA marks. But then of course we do have 4 evaluation marks, so let's try to pick them up. So the best evaluation point I can think of off the top of my head, it actually relates back to labour markets. I think it's one of the factors that determines the supply of labour, which is the percentage of costs it makes up for a firm. So here we've said the increase, what was it, 6.2% increase in national minimum wages is going to cause costs to increase massively, basically. So AC is shifting up a lot, MC is shifting up a lot. But however, a great evaluation point, and the way I would word it is, however, in evaluation, this depends on the percentage of costs that wages that workers make up, as if they are a relatively small percentage of a firm's costs, they will therefore not shift AC up as much, or to a smaller proportion, they will shift AC up, thus meaning that the effects on profitability will not be anywhere near as large, thus negating the negative effects of the increase in costs. And then of course, what usually happens when there's cost increases, and that is an absolute banger of an evaluation point. But then also on the opposite side of the spectrum, what do we say what is profit made up of? Profit is revenue take away costs. Now, when firms' costs increase, what as consumers do we usually see? We see firms increase their prices. So therefore, if costs have increased for firms, they're likely to increase prices. Thus, if prices increase, what is the revenue formula? Revenue is price times quantity. So essentially meaning that, yes, firms' costs have increased, but in line with the costs increasing, the revenues are likely to increase, as they're likely to pass that increase in costs, pass it on to the consumer. Thus meaning there might actually be no effect on profitability. I just want to make sure that makes sense. So as consumers, when firms' costs are rising, so for example, when the price of oil was rising, when the price of gas was rising, we saw a massive boom in household energy bills. But for example, so like we said, firms' total costs are rising. Therefore, how are firms likely to respond to these total costs rising? The firms' costs are rising. What they're likely to do? They're likely to increase prices. Therefore, if they increase prices, their revenue is likely to go up. So yes, even though a firm's costs are increasing, it's likely that the revenue will also increase, thus meaning that the negative effects of total cost increases are likely to be negated by the increase in total revenue. So almost they just balance out. The increase in costs could be balanced out by the increase in revenue, and that works as a really good evaluation point. So the way I would word the evaluation point is, however, in evaluation, the decrease in profitability depends on the increase in total revenue after a firm increases its prices. And then explain why a firm would increase prices, maybe include that bit of real world application that I mentioned, whatever you know of real world application there, and then it works as a really good evaluation point. And those, even one of them two, is more than enough to pick you up those 4 out of 4 evaluation marks for your 10 mark question, for your 12 mark question, sorry.